Hi, welcome to the Learning House. Once again, my name is Corey, and I'm here today with Carrie Lindquist. We've been having fun chatting and goofing off a little bit here today. Carrie, you are a second-generation homeschooling parent, and you write curriculum for us. Tell me, what inspired you to get into curriculum production?
Yeah, so really it came down to my kids. And as my son was reaching that time to start school, I would tell friends, oh, we're going to be homeschooling. And they would say, oh, I would love to homeschool, but I can't teach my kid how to read. It's too scary, too intimidating. I'm just not going to go near that subject. And so my journey into curriculum writing really started with wanting to create a resource that was very easy for moms. You know, at that stage, we tend to be juggling additional children. There's a baby on the hip. We're working ministry. A lot of us have small businesses or we're working part-time. There's so many things going on. And then learning to read can feel like something that's just overwhelming and beyond us. And so I set to work creating a resource that would be easy on mom, fun, hands-on, good for busy kids, because my sons are very, very busy. So I needed something that would engage them physically and mentally. And then I also wanted to lay a really strong biblical foundation because, like you said, I'm a second generation homeschool mom, and I have very fond memories of sitting on the couch with my mom when she was teaching me how to read. I still remember the lessons and the little jingles that we learned, and those have really become a part of our family culture. There's just random times that those jingles will come to mind. And so I thought, well, what would happen if we used that time to lay a really strong biblical foundation? And so Foundations Phonics, as the student is learning how to read, they're also taking a journey from creation to the resurrection of Christ.
Love it.
And setting such a strong foundation for the way how the gospel plays out. So they'll understand why we needed a savior, why Jesus came. And so that is Foundations Phonics. It's set up for kindergarten or first grade students, depending on when the student is ready to learn how to read. And there's a lot of flexibility built into it for all different types of learners. It's also very easy on mom. There's a lot of bonus hands-on activity ideas. And most of these are going to use things that you already have at home, things like flour and matchbox cars, any siblings, they can create letters using their siblings, different things like that, so that if you are juggling a newborn at this stage, you can still sit down on the couch, do the lesson, and say, you know what, I do have the energy for an activity today. Let's go do it. It's easy. You don't need additional things.
I love it. I love it that siblings are on your materials list.
Yes, we make do with what we have available.
That's the best materials list I've ever heard. Perfect.
Yeah. And then from there, as my boys got a little bit older, they started asking me questions. We'd be outside and they'd ask me a question about a bug or how this works. And I'd be like, I don't know. I didn't like science as a kid. But let's go find out. And so we started having these little science deep dives where we would just go deep into a topic and explore it and do hands-on activities. And I realized as we were doing that I had missed so much in science because it wasn't my favorite subject as a kid. I didn't see how it connected to my faith. I liked history because I could see God's hand throughout history. But science, it was just facts. I did it. And when my kids and I started exploring science, I realized there are so many connections to our faith. And what's beautiful about it is it's visible. And so what we see, no matter where we're studying, it reminds us of biblical truth. It points us to the character and attributes of God, and it strengthens our faith. And so Let's Talk Science came out of that realization. And again, it's a really hands-on science program, but it's designed to be very easy on mom and very affordable. And so a lot of the materials list are things that you have on hand. They're toys, things like popsicle sticks, things that you tend to already have in your craft bin. There's a couple exceptions, like you'll need a prism in one and some gear sets. But there's also a lot of ways that you can tweak that. So I've seen people use Lego sets or some different things. So you can really customize it to your home and then get a lot of science packed in a really hands-on, fun way that's easy to manage and create so many fun memories with our students.
I really love the biblical emphasis on both of your Foundations Phonics and in the science series, that Master Books has done such a good job of keeping the gospel as central and foundational.
Yes.
So important to so many families. Yeah.
Yes.
Most families will know that our mission as a business, in serving our families, is to help families do education well. And from a Christian perspective, it's important to us to always have materials on hand that we feel that Christian homeschooling families would be comfortable with, and with the centrality of the gospel to all lessons in Master Book's curriculum. I really appreciate that we don't say, hey, math is separate from our Christianity, or science is separate from the Bible.
Yes.
Really appreciate this way that we can pull them together. And when I was pulling this stuff together before I came to chat with you, I asked our staff, is there anything that we need to chat about to make sure that we're well equipped for our customers? And one of our staff piped up and said, I just always recommend this series to families because my mom uses it with all the younger kids and loves using this because it's got this simple materials list. And like most Master Books materials, or most Master Books curriculums, I love these pieces at the beginning where I know that I can plan ahead a week or 2 or 5 or 6 weeks, get the resources I need, find most of it around the house, and then know what I'm doing from week to week.
Yes, for sure. They do so well laying out the courses and making it easy on us moms to implement.
Yeah. So backtracking a little bit though, you're a second generation homeschooler. Tell me a little bit about your homeschooling experience as a student and why you continue to do this with your own kids.
Yeah. So as a student, I loved my educational experience. I wouldn't have had it any other way. That's not to say that there weren't rocky moments, because I was also a very strong-willed student, and I actually got expelled from homeschool at one point, and my dad had to pick up homeschooling me. So that's a fun story for another time. But to any moms who have a strong-willed student that they're dealing with this year, just take heart. It's part of the process. The Lord uses it to refine them as much as they refine us. And there's hope at the end of the journey. It's not always going to be the long days. But I graduated homeschool, like I said, loved it, wouldn't have had my education any other way. And so my husband and I knew that when we had kids, we also wanted to homeschool them. I love being part of their educational experience, especially in the early years, because it's so special. There's nothing like seeing their eyes light up as they're learning to read, and the world is opening to them, and you're leading them to God and to their Creator and all of these things. Those moments to me are just, they're priceless. And so I really wanted to be a part of that with my kids, and then have that time for discipleship, because the amount of time that we have our kids is so short. You know, we have them for just this little snippet before they're adults. And I wanted to be able to invest in them and make sure that as they went into adulthood, they did have the firm foundation under their feet, and that we had a lot of memories to look back on and share later on.
And I love that idea that we are, like, right from day one, when you have this tiny little infant, we are walking towards that moment when they are independent.
Yes.
And we play with our children, and we clean up after our children, and we teach our children, but we're preparing them to be adults. We're not raising children, we're raising adults, and we're getting them ready for some really important parts of how they're going to enter into God's plan and be a part of this bigger picture. And so enjoying those moments, even though it's messy and it's exhausting, and there's friction sometimes, and we are not prepared to homeschool. None of us is the ideal homeschooling mom. Every mom I talk to, maybe 1 or 2 says, no, I've got it all together, but she's faking it. And we all question whether we're the right person. We have these times when it's messy, and it is so important to keep that foundation of relationship with our Savior and relationship with one another. So really appreciate that thought and that need, and that's in the forefront.
Yes, it's a growing and refining process on us as much as it is on our kids.
And I've talked to so many homeschooling moms all across the country, thousands and thousands of moms. And when I say, why did you start to homeschool? None of them say, oh, I got this parenting thing pegged, I just want to take it to the next level. Or like, I am so patient, I just want to try it.
Yes, I hear so many moms say, I could never homeschool, I'm not patient enough. And I say, I'm not either. But by the grace of God, He refines me, and there's grace, and he provides patience on the days that we need it.
Yeah. We have talked about, you are involved with Master Books. For anybody who doesn't know sort of the bigger picture of what Master Books is, or who this company is that's providing us with these resources, tell me a little bit about Master Books, what they provide, and the history of your involvement there.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love about master books is they do keep faith at the forefront. It's not added into a subject, it's intricately woven through. And so whether you're studying math, language, history, science, cursive, anything, the Bible is the foundation of that material. Another thing that's important to me, we talked some prior to recording this about all of the things that we juggle as homeschool moms. And Master Books curriculum is designed to fit into homeschool. It was designed for homeschool, for the homeschool setting, really. Where a lot of curriculums have been adapted for use for homeschoolers, Master Books is designed for the homeschool setting. And that really makes it life-proof, so that whatever you're dealing with, whatever struggles, whatever the day throws at you, you can still get in school and still keep moving forward. You're not going to fall behind. It's easy to adapt no matter what learning differences you're dealing with. And so there's a lot of flexibility that way.
I like that term, life proof.
Yes, we need curriculum that's life proof, because we know the things happen.
Yeah. Like, we look to some, great educational leaders, but there are people who had a controlled environment. Bring the kids in when everybody's ready. Send them home when somebody's sick or tired.
Yes.
Take a day off when you need to. But as moms, we're in there 24/7. And sometimes your day starts at 2:00 in the morning, and then at 4:00 in the morning. And by 8:00 in the morning, we're not ready for something heavy duty. So the open and go nature, and the not having to hunt down tons of pieces or have a lot of moving parts, is so valuable to a busy mom, to know that we can meet high educational standards without having to get burned out.
Yes, for sure. And that's something that's been so important to me, because I've written curriculum, I've worked part-time, full-time hours, and done all different things. And in every season, Master Books has fit into that. Now, maybe we didn't do school in the morning. Sometimes we did a 4-day school week. Sometimes we did school in the evening with dad, sometimes over the weekend. But no matter what season we were in, no matter what schedule we needed to have, it fit into that and made it very easy to continue going and teach the kids and grow faith and all of that along the way.
So important. Tell me about the style of writing that you have. So are your resources written to a particular audience, or a teaching style, a learning style?
I would say mine tend to be a Charlotte Mason flavored and very hands-on. So I focus on my lessons tend to be short, but they're power packed. And that is so we allow the student room to think, to experience for themselves, and go deeper into a topic. And you'll find in a lot of, especially science, the lessons will build on each other. So they may be very short for a short attention span, because that's what my boys tend to have. We move quick around here. And they'll get in a quick lesson, and then the next day it's going to build on that. And so they're getting these bursts that they're continuing to grow on and grow their interest in over time.
I really like that challenge to think. I remember so much of my own experience as a public school student. I would want to ask questions, and I having teachers say, "That's not the time for this now. We're studying this, learn this, do the test, move on." And giving our kids a lot of room for asking questions and digging deeper and wondering why.
That's where so much powerful learning takes place, is when they have a deep question and you can say, "I don't know, let's go explore it together." And they're learning how to take ownership of their educational experience. And then from there, I also encourage a lot of the student expressing what they've learned. So tell someone, tell a family, tell your grandparent, tell a sibling, tell a friend, because they're internalizing the knowledge and then they're externalizing it and making it their own as they're sharing.
And that CM flavor, that Charlotte Mason flavored education, so resonates. I have children that are 15 and up now. We have this revolving door in our house where kids are moving in and out, and young adults that go off to university and come back, and it's a phenomenal time for us to see kids bloom and blossom and come into this adult expression of who they are, no longer mom putting them in the lane and
Yes.
guiding them. But we were talking last night at dinner about that telling back, about how it has been so valuable over the last 25 years where we have spent time at the table just telling back and telling what we know and unpacking things. And it's not just what did I learn in science or how did I learn to read a new something when we were really little. It wasn't about the math and the history, although those were part of it. And I still have, one that's homeschooling who will say, did you know that? And she starts to tell us and narrate to us the things that happened in this episode in history that she's learning about, or about something that she learned in science or whatever. But those telling back and that unpacking of stuff at the dinner table, we just talked last night about how that has been the most powerful part of our education. The ability to stop, to think. And I think one of my kids in particular, they all ask good questions, but one of my kids in particular, I always said, she asks more deep questions in a week than I ever did in my university days, because I just, you learn, you memorize, you do the test, you learn, you memorize, you do the test. And this ability to stop and unpack things, so important.
Yes, very much.
I love it. So your curriculums, the resources that you've provided us with, what age group are we looking at? How old are these resources for? I'm going to flip over to some of these books.
Foundations Phonics is in the kindergarten to first grade range. So if your student is ready to learn how to read in kindergarten, you would use it as a 1-year course. And if they're ready in first grade, you would use it as a half-year course and then follow it up with language lessons for living education level 1. In the front matter of the book, there's some tips for knowing when your student is ready and going based off of their excitement level. So that one's very flexible because each student is an individual and they all are ready to approach reading at different stages. Some are a little bit earlier, some are a little bit later, and that's okay because they're following the track that God has for them. And then for Let's Talk Science, those books are in levels from K through 4th grade. So typically level K, that would coordinate for a kindergarten student. There's also some flexibility built into the program. So if you wanted to use it with a student who's very scientifically minded in preschool and is ready for it, you can definitely do that. If you have a first grader that needs some lighter content, you can do it in first grade. I typically say either 1 year lower or 1 year higher than the grade level if you wanted to add in some flexibility, or if you have two students that are very similar, very close in age or grade, then you can combine those and just have the older student work on the projects. You can add in, there's usually recommended resources in the beginning. So those might be like God's Big Book of Animals is a recommended resource for level 3. So you can have an older student work through those bonus materials as well, so that they're getting more information for their grade level.
And that's something that's so important to some families is, can I do this with multiple ages? So it's nice to have that flexibility. And we also tell people to just work at your children's pace. With something like phonics, it's always our recommendation to make sure that we are rhythmically going through lessons. So we're aiming to do a lesson every day, 4 or 5 days a week, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever your child can handle. And us as moms, especially when we start out in homeschooling, it often takes, something to get these rhythms going. And that's okay. Maybe you did it 2 days this week. Aim for 3 next time. And we are all working on our attention and our rhythms and our schedules and our ability to make this into something routine. But the whole point is to make sure that we approach phonics and math, and especially at the young levels, this phonics learning at a rhythmic pace, and that we see our children using a well-chosen curriculum in a routine way and see them making progress. And that might be really fast for some kids, and it might just be slow and methodical for other kids. And as long as we see them making progress in a rhythmic way, then we are seeing success. So sometimes
Yeah.
it takes kids longer to do phonics. That's
Yep.
okay. And there's times to ring the bells and ask for extra help.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
for the most part, we just work on working our way forward. Whereas curriculums like science, history, geography, we can meet the rhythms of our family and say, you know, if we didn't finish all of the science this year, or if we raced ahead, that's okay too.
Yes.
You can follow the rhythms of what works for you guys, and when you're passionate about it, jump in further. And when you need a rest because the baby didn't sleep well, or you've had extra medical appointments, or grandma came to visit, then enjoy those times, or take the time as needed and adjust the other pieces. It's so important to be able to do that.
Yes. I'm a big proponent that curriculum is a tool that we fit into our lives and we mold for our students, because we want to steward their gifts, talents, and abilities very well. And so rather than letting the curriculum dictate what they need to be, what we need to be doing, it's a tool that you fit into your life and mold to fit your students.
Amen. Amen. I have one in particular. We used to make schedules. We would have a list of courses that we were working on. And I remember one of my kids in particular, I made up the schedule for the school year, and she was like, oh, it's so much. It'll never work. It's too much for me. And I said, listen, this is just to give us an idea of what our days look like and what our goals are for the day, but it doesn't dictate to us. I said, this is our servant. It's not our master. And she wrote along the top of that schedule that year, servant, not master.
I love
it. That became one of our key things for her, was that she always knew that it was meant to help her to stay on track, but it didn't rule her. And that there was certain things that were non-negotiable, because you have to, if you don't show up for swimming lessons on time, you miss swimming lessons. But other things that we could say, well, we put that off a little bit and we chose to do this one instead, and that was okay.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So overall, like the nuts and bolts of this, how long, if I'm using Adventures in Science and I'm using Foundations Phonics with my children, what does a typical day look like? How long am I going to take? What do I need to do ahead of time? What does my time with my children look like? Could you sort of walk me through a day with like a kindergarten-ish student who's doing these two pieces?
Yep. So Foundations Phonics, that is recommended to be a 3-day-a-week schedule. And that schedule is laid out in the book. You're welcome to tweak that if you have a student that needs to move slower or faster, like we talked about. Make it your own. I totally recommend doing that. Lessons typically are about, depending on your student, about between 10 and 20 minutes, I would say. And it's set up in a way so that if your student needs to take a break, so you do the lesson narration and then you take a break, and then you do reading and you take a break, and you can come back for the worksheet. You can really tailor that to fit your student. The worksheet, it works really well. For my students, what I like to do was pull out that worksheet, and then they would color the letter at the beginning while I was reading through the narration. And that kind of helped to keep their little hands busy so that their minds could focus a little bit more on what I was saying. But it's designed to be, like I said, easy. It's grab and go, sit down on the couch, go do a lesson. On the days off, I recommend continuing to work on what they've learned. So grab an extra bonus activity. If they're starting to read, grab a little reader, start working through the reader, helping them to point out letters or words that they know, blend out things that they know. So that's what it's going to look like for Foundations Phonics.
Can you tell me about the bonus activities? Is that something you suggest, or is that something that I would just choose from my own little repertoire?
Those are listed at the end of the narration. Usually, I think after the reading, there'll be a little section that says bonus activities. And so I would recommend picking one or two of those if you can. If you can't fit them into a day, that's fine. Don't beat yourself up about it. But definitely, as you go, work in bonus activities as you can fit them in. And also, if there's an activity that your student loves, you can reuse that in lesson after lesson if you want. If you have other activities, work those in. It all works together to create a hands-on activity for them, so that they're using the knowledge that they're gaining in different ways, and that helps them to process it, helps the brain make connections, and so those are really important.
I remember doing this with my little people years and years ago. Help your students find household objects that begin with or contain the letter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of good memories of having those little run around the house and find me something that sounds like pup, pup, pup.
Yes. And you can do those
Yeah.
Sorry. You can do those activities too out and about. My kids love the
Mhm.
grocery store. My youngest was looking at letters at urgent care the other day. He was calling out letters. So there's so many ways that you can combine these activities into life.
Oh my goodness. And that's the way life and homeschooling, moms doing lessons at urgent care. Oh my word. Okay. It so resonates with me. Okay. And so now we finished our phonics. We've done our every other day and some bonus activities if we get to them. And now tell me about science. What does science look like when we're not at urgent care?
So let's talk science. The way that the book is going to be broken down varies a little bit by the level. So
Mhm.
kindergarten is a 2 day a week. Of course, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a little bit since I've written that one and gone through it. Um,
2 days a
yes,
week.
2 days. Okay. So that one's going to be 2 days a week. Now, again, you can work through that faster or slower. There's usually it's introduced with a story, and then there's the lesson narration, there's worksheets, hands-on activities each week so that the student gets to experiment with what they're doing. In level 1 and 2, it's going to be a 3-day-a-week schedule.
Mhm.
And then levels 3 and 4 are a 5-day schedule. So it kind of amps up the schedule as they go along, as they get older, and the material that they're able to process.
Yeah, those schedules are so helpful for
I
us,
love it.
parents, especially as my kids get older. When I
Yeah.
feel like, especially the middle school and high school years, it makes such a difference to be able to tell a kid this is a reasonable rhythm for your week. And when we're younger, we can kind of play around with that and we don't have to be stuck on a particular um, like on a really strict schedule with things like science, history, geography. But with our older students, I really love those when I get a schedule that I can help my kids to keep to a little more independently as they get older. So,
Yeah.
super duper. Okay, and then before we get into that lesson for the week, I would typically spend some time on a Sunday or a Saturday making sure that I had things like a tablecloth, white paper, washable paint, and a paintbrush. And if we needed to, we'd add it to the grocery list. And if we didn't feel up to it, we would decide, hey, is this for later or not at all? And then make sure that our week is planned out.
Yes, absolutely. Make it your own. And there's also reminders in the course at the beginning of the week and typically on the day of an activity for what materials you're going to need. And that just keeps it really easy on us moms. So you're not having to flip back and forth. You can see it all right there at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, this is neat. For the third grade level, it looks very conversational. I love the colorful nature of Master Books resources. And it does help many moms with this perforation that we can pull stuff out, especially with young ones that get like really overwhelmed by something that's just so big and chunky like this. We can pull it a page at a time and they don't have to worry about how much is yet to come, but they can just enjoy the lesson for today without feeling like it's going to go on forever and ever. And you've got some really great extra reading resources that are super fun from Master Books.
Yes.
Neat.
Favorite.
Okay, so overall, just a couple of recap questions. What do you hope that families get most out of your curriculums that you've produced?
Yeah, so obviously we want students to take away a solid education. We want them to be able to read and know science. But beyond that, the purpose when it's all boiled down is that I hope that families would walk away with a strengthened faith. Both for them, because there's so many times even I'll open up science with one of my students and the Lord speaks something that I needed that day through the lesson. And so my greatest prayer for everyone who uses either Foundations Phonics or Let's Talk Science is that the Lord would minister to them and grow the faith of their children in a lifelong way so that the foundation is set. And no matter what they're facing in life, those lessons come to mind and they rely on God. Very neat.
Very neat. Always brings to mind the scripture in Hebrews 13, verse 7. I'm not going to quote it properly now because I'm trying, where it just, previous to that, it says how we look to Jesus as the author and perfecter of our faith. And then in this verse, it talks about, and look to your leaders who have gone before them and the role that they play in giving a role model of the faith. And I always think of how those people who have gone before me are people in my family, are people in my community, in my church, and people that I've met but never met through good books and resources. And those are the ways that we rely on strong curriculums in giving us guidance to help to bring our children in contact with their Creator.
Yes,
So,
for sure.
so neat. So let me just summarize with, you're a veteran homeschooler and a homeschooling mom, that second generation mom who we can say, look, somebody survived it and you look so normal. Who knew?
Yes. Who knew? You could even be expelled from homeschooling and still turn out okay.
There we go. You claim to fame. But what are some, do you have a tip or an idea or a parting thought for us, for other parents who are in the trenches now, working with their younger kids? Give us some thoughts.
Yeah, I think because we live in the social media age, it can be so stressful with the young kids because everything we're bombarded with is you have to do this to get it right. No, don't do that. You'll ruin your kids if you do it that way. Do it this way. No. And it gets really, really overwhelming. And I think we start to doubt whether we are called or equipped to teach our children. And I always tell moms, you are called, you are equipped. God will equip you to do the job. And I think that we can bring it all back. We don't have to stress about it. We've taught our kids everything that they know up to this point. Tying shoes, eating, proper manners, all of these things we've already taught. And homeschooling's not different. It's just a continuation of that process. And so I always encourage, don't stress. Choose a curriculum that fits your family. Make it your own, and then have fun with your kids, because learning is fun. It's an experience that we get to share together, to enjoy together, to learn things, because I learn things with my kids as well. And then we get to delight in that knowledge and then turn around and praise the creator of math, of language, of history, of science, of all of these things. And that deepens and grows our faith.
Very neat. Very neat. Yes. Big picture ideas. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for spending time with me, Carrie. And we made it through without any interruptions from little people. There's always the threat that my teenagers are going to come in, which is not a threat. I love my teenagers. But we made it through without interruption. And I just appreciate you sharing your time with me today.
Thank you so much.